"You selfish trash," my mother, Angela, screamed across the Sapphire Hotel's sun-drenched terrace. The ceramic pot in her hand tipped, and then the heat struck. Freshly brewed coffee cascaded over my head, scalding my scalp, streaming down my neck, soaking straight through my thrift store gray hoodie. The pain was instant, violent, breath-stealing. A physical shock that made my lungs seize, but the sound that followed hurt worse. Laughter. My brother Christopher and my sister Amanda already had their phones raised, recording. Tiny red dots blinked back at me like predatory eyes. I sat there, liquid dripping from my lashes, pain pulsing down my spine, and understood with terrifying clarity that the bridge wasn't just burned, it had been obliterated. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community. I stood, I didn't wipe my face. I didn't look at my mother, who was now breathing hard, chest heaving with the aftermath of her fury. I turned and walked straight toward the hotel bathroom, my boots striking the marble floor in a steady, deliberate rhythm. Inside, I locked the door and leaned over the sink. My reflection stared back, hair plastered down with dark liquid, skin along my hairline and neck turning an angry, blistering red. The urge to scream rose like a living thing, clawing at my throat. I wanted to roar. I wanted to march back out there and overturn the table, shatter their expensive dishes and fragile egos, make them feel the heat burning into my skin. But then I looked closer at my eyes. They weren't wet, they were ice. If I screamed, I fed them content. If I cried, I handed them satisfaction. Chaos was their oxygen. My mother's image-obsessed perfectionism, my siblings' hunger for attention, they were parasites of reaction. A fight meant I still cared, a fight meant I was still playing. Silence, though silence is a mirror. When you refuse to scream back at a monster, it's forced to hear itself echoing into nothingness. By withholding my rage, I starved them. I grabbed paper towels and gently blotted the coffee from my neck. The skin was tender, already peeling. I hissed through clenched teeth but kept my expression flat. I wasn't giving them a single usable frame of me breaking. I walked back onto the terrace. The table had gone quiet, but the air buzzed with malice. Christopher smirked, phone still raised. Amanda typed furiously, likely crafting her caption in real time. Angela stood with her arms folded, waiting for the apology she believed she deserved. I walked up to the table. I didn't sit. I reached into the damp pocket of my hoodie, pulled out my wallet, and removed 4 crisp $20 bills, $80, my share of a breakfast I never ate. I placed them carefully on the white tablecloth beside the empty coffee pot, smoothing them flat, making sure they were perfect. Then I turned and walked away. "That's right," Christopher shouted after me. "Run away, go cry in your truck." I kept walking. I didn't turn around. The silence I left behind weighed more than any scream ever could. It was the sound of a door slamming shut, locking, then being welded closed forever. They thought they'd won because they held the camera. They didn't realize they'd just filmed their own execution. I slid into my 10-year-old Subaru, the smell of stale coffee lingering in the cab. My hands shook as I turned the key, not from fear, but from the crash of adrenaline. I pulled out of the hotel lot and onto the highway, putting distance between myself and the people who shared my DNA. The whole thing had started over something so trivial it was almost laughable. Christopher had cornered me before the food arrived. He needed $50,000, an investment, he'd called it, for his luxury watch dealership. "Inventory is tight," he'd said, flashing a grin made of desperation and teeth. "Just a bridge loan. You can put it on a credit card, Emma. You've got good credit, right?" He didn't know I'd sold my AI safety company, SafeMind, to Google DeepMind 3 weeks earlier for $110 million. He didn't know my net worth hovered around $250 million. He thought I was a struggling freelance coder living in a cabin because I couldn't afford the city. When I declined calmly, politely, the mask cracked. "You're so selfish," he sneered. "Mom pays for everything for us and you can't even help with a loan." That refusal lit the fuse. My family lived on paper-thin wealth. Christopher drove a leased Range Rover he was behind on. Amanda styled herself as a lifestyle coach in a condo funded by our parents' shrinking retirement. Angela wore designer labels bought on consignment and returned after one wear. Their lives were liabilities dressed as assets. I glanced down at my coffee-stained hoodie and jeans. I own my truck, I own my cabin, I own my intellectual property. And as of 3 weeks ago, I owned enough capital to buy and sell their entire zip code. Freedom is the ability to say no without fear. That's what they hated, not my poverty, but my independence. They felt it on me and it terrified them. They were drowning in payments and perception while I stood on bedrock. My scalp throbbed, a sharp reminder of the cost of that freedom. I steered toward urgent care, my thoughts already dividing. One part of me wanted to curl up and mourn the mother I never had. The other, the CEO, was already drafting the police report. They wanted to teach me my place in the family. They were about to learn my place in the world. This wasn't a family argument anymore. It was a hostile takeover, and I had never lost a negotiation. My apartment was silent except for the refrigerator's hum and the sharp hiss of burn spray as I applied it to my scalp. The mirror showed the damage clearly, a blister forming behind my left ear, skin along my hairline raw and inflamed. I didn't hide it. I wanted to remember exactly what $50,000 of rejection looked like. My phone lit up, then again, then buzzed relentlessly. I dried my hands and picked it up, not an apology. A TikTok notification. Someone had tagged me on an old account I barely used. I opened the app. Christopher's smug, filtered face filled the screen. The video played. There I was, head bowed, coffee dripping from my chin as my mother screamed. The caption blazed in yellow text, "When your broke sister tries to ruin brunch, taking out the trash." I scrolled. "She looks like a wet rat, serves her right." Amanda had reposted it to Instagram with a laughing emoji and the words "Karma is served hot." I set the phone down. They were celebrating. Riding the dopamine of likes and validation. Certain they'd won. Certain this was the end, the trash taken out, the winners back to mimosas. They didn't understand that online context is currency. And the market was about to crash. I didn't report the video. I didn't comment. I took screenshots, the post, the caption, the timestamps, and saved them to an encrypted folder labeled evidence. Then I made myself tea, not coffee, never coffee again. I sat by the window and waited for the algorithm to do what it always does, surface truth. By Monday morning, the air had shifted, heavy. Pressurized like the calm before a storm. I was in my home office, a converted bedroom in my cabin overlooking the valley, reviewing code for a new neural network architecture when my personal phone rang. Alina, head of PR. "Emma," she said tightly, "have you seen Twitter?" "I've seen TikTok," I replied, typing a command into my terminal. "It breached containment," Alina said. "Hit tech Twitter an hour ago. A former intern recognized you. Views are at 4 million and climbing. They know who you are. They know you founded SafeMind. They know about the DeepMind acquisition." I pulled Twitter up on my second monitor. SafeMind was trending. At the top, a split image, one of me on the cover of Wired, polished and composed. The other, a grainy screenshot of me soaked in coffee. The caption read, "This family assaulted one of the most important women in AI because she wouldn't loan them $50K. They have no idea she's worth 9 figures." The comments flooded in. "That's Angela Mercer. She's on the Arts Council. This guy sells watches on commission and he's bullying a self-made multimillionaire. Do you want us to issue a takedown?" Alina asked. "We can have it scrubbed." "Harassment policy violation. It'll be gone in 10 minutes. "No," I said. My voice was calm, steady. "Leave it up, Emma. It's humiliating." "It's not humiliating for me, Alina. It's illuminating for everyone else. Let it play. Let them see exactly who these people are." I hung up. The narrative had flipped. I wasn't the broke sister anymore. I was the underdog titan. The public didn't just see a family squabble. They saw a group of parasites attacking the host. I watched the retweet counter spin like a slot machine. The villain's escalation had just met the professional escalation. They wanted attention. I was going to give them the world. Tuesday morning. Christopher stood on the showroom floor of Timeless Luxury, adjusting his cuffs. He was probably checking his phone, waiting for more likes, unaware that the ground beneath his feet had already liquefied. He didn't know that my venture capital firm, Apex Ventures, had been busy over the weekend. We hadn't just bought a watch. We had acquired the controlling stake in the parent company that owned his franchise rights. It was a small acquisition for us, a portfolio diversifier, but it gave me a very specific authority. His manager approached him holding an iPad. "Christopher Corporate wants a word. Zoom meeting." Now, Christopher probably thought he was getting a promotion or maybe a warning about social media usage. He didn't expect to see the regional director and a representative from HR on the screen, and he certainly didn't expect the third window to be blacked out, labeled simply ownership. "Mr. Mercer," the director said, his voice clipped, "we have received thousands of complaints regarding a video you posted. Gross misconduct, conduct damaging to the brand reputation, hostile behavior." "It's a private family matter," Christopher stammered, his confidence evaporating. It's just a joke. There is nothing funny about assault, the HR representative cut in. And there is nothing private about 4 million views. Your employment is terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you out. You can't do this, my sister. Your sister, I said, unmuting my microphone but leaving the camera off. My voice filled the room, amplified by the conference speakers. Your sister is the majority shareholder of the holding company that signs your paychecks, Christopher, and she has a zero-tolerance policy for bullies. Silence, absolute suffocating silence. Pack your desk, I said, and leave the demo watch. You can't afford it. I ended the call. One down. They came to my gate on Thursday. It was inevitable. When a narcissist loses control, they don't reflect. They attack. It is a psychological phenomenon known as narcissistic collapse. The facade crumbles. The grandiose self-image is punctured. And what spills out isn't remorse, but pure unadulterated rage. They cannot process shame, so they convert it into aggression. They have to destroy the mirror that showed them their true reflection. I watched them on the high-definition security monitors from the safety of my kitchen island. Angela's luxury sedan leased, of course, was idling aggressively at the iron gates of my estate. I had bought this property under an LLC 6 months ago, 20 acres of woodland, a modern glass fortress, completely invisible from the road. They must have paid a private investigator to find the address. Angela was leaning on the intercom buzzer, her face distorted by the camera lens. Christopher was pacing behind her, kicking at the gravel, looking like a man who hadn't slept since he lost his job. Open this gate, Angela screamed. The audio was crisp, filtered through the high-end system. You tricked us. You let us think you were poor. You liar. That was their narrative now. Not that they had burned me, but that I had deceived them. In their twisted logic, my success was a betrayal because I hadn't shared it. They felt entitled to the wealth they had mocked me for not having. We know you're in there, Emma. Christopher yelled, leaning into the camera. You owe me my jobs. You owe us. I pressed the talk button. I didn't open the gate. You are trespassing on private property. Trespassing? Angela shrieked, her voice cracking. I am your mother. You have millions, millions. And you let me wear last season's coat. You let us struggle. You ungrateful, manipulative. I am not your mother. I corrected, my voice flat and metallic through the speaker. I am the selfish trash you poured coffee on. Remember, open the gate, Emma. We need to talk about compensation. You embarrassed us globally. We are going to sue you for defamation. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation, Angela, and the video you filmed is the only evidence I need. I glanced at the second monitor. A black SUV was pulling up the driveway behind their sedan, lights flashing silently. Also, you should know that I have a restraining order pending based on the assault. The police arriving behind you are here to enforce it. On the screen, blue lights reflected off Angela's car. Christopher froze his aggression, evaporating instantly. Angela looked at the approaching officers, then back at the camera, her face crumbling from rage into fear. Goodbye, I said. I cut the feed. The silence that followed was expensive. It was the silence of a high-end HVAC system of triple-paned glass of absolute safety. 2 weeks later, the dust had settled into a thick permanent layer over my family's old life. Christopher was unemployable in the city. The viral video was the first thing that popped up when anyone Googled his name. Amanda had lost her sponsorship deals. Brands do not like influencers who laugh at assault. Angela was essentially under house arrest, too ashamed to show her face at the club where the incident happened. I sat on the deck of my cabin, the mountain air cool against my healing skin. My phone buzzed. It was a lawyer, but not one I had hired. It was Grandma Rose's attorney. She wanted you to know immediately. The lawyer said she has rewritten the will, the estate, the trust, the property. It is all being transferred to you. I don't need it. I said I have enough. She knows, the lawyer replied. That is exactly what she said. She said, give it to Emma. She is the only one who didn't need it, which is why she is the only one who deserves it. I hung up. I looked out at the tree and I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel giddy. I felt light. The weight of their expectations, their cruelty, their noise, it was all gone. I picked up my phone, opened the family group chat one last time and pressed delete group. Then I whistled for my dog, climbed into my truck and drove toward the horizon. The rear view mirror was empty and the road ahead was entirely mine.